Hi, everybody. This is Lowell, and we're talking about sound system design and or the basics of understanding sound systems. I'm not going into great depth of the subject, but just some of you who may not understand how sound systems are set up or the various basics of sound system design. One thing that most people take for granted is the value of cables. And I'll do another video about how to, take care of cables and to make sure that they don't break. But it's the connection point between equipment connections. And so you really need to value cables. And today I want to talk about the various kinds of, or the most, not all of them, but the most used types of connections in sound systems. These days we have digital sound systems, and so there's essentially you have just a computer network that uses Cat6 to connect things. But you still have your basics that plug into that type of system. Back in the day, it used to be that everything was run on what we call XLR cabling through now we know as analog snakes, copper wire, and basically the terminology XLR. X stands for ground, and then left and right. So you had three cables that ran through, and then also shielding. The grounding could be the shielding, or you could actually have other shielding on top of the grounding. But so is either 3 or 4 wires basically that would run through the cable. But the same concept of those 3 cables, these 3 types of cables, is common in all of our current use of cables, even if it's run into a digital system, which uses a different kind of system. A digital system is running on it's still obviously it's still cabling, but it turns the signal into digital, and then it sends a digital signal through the Cat6, and then so it converts analog at the front end of it and converts it into a digital signal, and then sends it through multiple places, and then on the other side of it, if you want to say the output side of it, turns it back into analog. That's basically how systems run right now. So anyway, the 2 main types of connectors is XLR, or what we call a standard microphone cable, and that's the one I'll start with first. It looks like this. A lot of you've seen it. And so here's the female side with the holes, and then here's the male side with the pins. And notice that there's 3 pins, and so it's XLR. And what you'll see, and I have my little screwdriver that'll open up the casing. This tiny little screw that comes out, and I'll pull back the casing for you where you can see that the what's on the inside of this. If you look carefully, you'll see 3 connection points. This part down here, that's the ground, and then you have red and what is that? Black. Usually it's red and black, and those are your 3 connection points. And so that the grounding causes there to be a shielding. What happens is that you have electromagnetic fields that are happening, especially on stages with lots of equipment. And if you have cabling that's crossing each other, which it's really difficult to not have cables crossing each other when you have a lot of things going on, then you end up causing essentially an induction point where you can induce noise into the system. And so it's really important to have that grounding of the cable. The other most common cable is your is your 1/4" guitar cable, and this also has grounding. So notice that it's a tip and a sleeve, and so you have, you know, the tip is the positive, and then the sleeve is the negative, and then you also have shielding or grounding. And so in essence, it's very similar to a microphone cable, where you have positive, negative, and ground, or XLR, you know, left, right, and ground. And so this is the microphone cable and the guitar instrument. We call this an instrument cable, and it's a 1/4" jack. It's the size of this is 1/4", and those are the two most used cables into a sound system. Now, what you don't want to do is confuse an instrument cable with a speaker cable. So a speaker cable is, you know, it's also 1/4", and it looks like an instrument cable, but the major difference is that it doesn't have the shielding. It's only 2 cables that run through here, and so you basically, if you try to use this kind of cable on stage, you're going to induce some sort of noise, or pick up on 60 cycle hums and that type of thing. And if you don't know what 60 cycle hum is, it's 60 hertz, or 60 vibrations per second, or kind of the note. I think it's like a B. You'll just hear that continually through the sound system. Can't get rid of it. It's because you have a grounding problem whenever you hear that. In other ways, another cable here is an RCA jack, and this is basically similar to a speaker wire. It just has a different, and you use this usually to connect, you know, like CD players. If you know, we don't use CD players hardly anymore, but components outside of the sound system that you're trying to plug in. A lot of times, you know, a sound system doesn't have this kind of input, and so you have to kind of have an adapter to turn it into a 1/4", and you can just, you know, plug that 1/4" adapter onto it. Anyway, those are the major, most used types of cables in a sound system. And the next video, I'll show you how to care for your cables, and that's also important.